start off. Let's start off with the cicada update.
Holy cow. Dumbest bug on the freaking planet, man. They fly around like they're drunk. And then last night, oh, you got me going. Um Last night I go out on the balcony just because it's raining, just taking in the air. And there's like 50 of them on my balcony. So now I got to clean them up later because what they do is they just go somewhere and die because they're like the Homer Simpson of bugs.
Right.
Pretty much.
I hate
Get a
them.
bucket. I just like a little dustpan and a bucket. I'm just constantly collecting them.
I don't ever need to see them again. I'll skip the next 17-year one.
I don't know how they fit into Darwin's theory.
Is it almost over?
I think it's like another week or so. Yeah.
Yeah, it might not be.
It looks like I'm coming back tomorrow, so I was hoping to use the whole thing.
I haven't had a chance to look this up, but someone told me that they don't eat. Do you guys have the 411 on that? Do they not?
That's not true at all. One of the benefits of them is that they eat this, like that green algae, not algae, but that green stuff
Pollen.
they see on trees sometimes.
Pollen.
No. It's like mold or moss or no, it's not moss. It's like, have you ever seen it? It's like almost a green staining on the bark sometimes.
Kind of, but they eat that apparently.
They eat that, yeah.
So we went to our community pool and it's surrounded by trees, and I've been hearing them. Obviously everyone's been hearing them, but they were like so thick there. After like 2 hours I had a headache. I never had headaches. It was so intense and so loud. My daughter was like, I don't know, 10 feet away from me. We couldn't even hear each other talk. That's how loud it was.
I was talking to somebody yesterday because I got to the garden. The wife has started a garden. I think you guys have been there at some point. And I was talking to this guy, real bright kid. And he was saying that in some places they can get as high as 100 decibels, which is like a football stadium.
Wow.
Yeah, I hate them. I cannot stand them.
You're gonna miss them when they're gone, man.
Have you noticed you don't see any birds around? I think they're just sitting in their nest, just engorged with cicadas. Just, I don't know, just being lazy. Just they got all the food they could ever want.
You can't hear the birds. They're out there. You just can't hear them.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. You probably
But I feel
can't.
like I can't see them. I haven't seen them a lot. A couple cardinals, but that's it.
Well, after I'm wanted to get that update out of the way so we don't miss it at the end. But yeah, Darcy, I think it's probably at least another week or so. I mean, they seem to be peaking.
What are you
I was
laughing
hoping
at,
I'd miss
Jack?
the whole thing.
Me too.
There'll be bodies, man. I love like the headless bodies.
I already had to pay. I had to pay for a handyman to come by and like scoop up as much as he could. There were just carcasses all over the yard. Rebecca's screaming about like how it just smells bad out back. And
Hey, Darcy, what's your audio coming in from? Because you're kind of cutting in and out. It's a little choppy.
That's me.
Oh, okay.
It's my AirPods.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Sounds okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I hear you fine.
I thought it was
Okay.
crackling a little bit there. Okay, no problem.
So
I think we should. Sorry, I was gonna say we should get like a shoebox full of cicadas and we can send them to Jack since he's missing out.
I think they're wild, man. They're really cool.
Nah, I despise them with every fiber of my being.
Just a shoebox full of the dead ones.
Well, I'm not looking forward to this
Thank
smell
you,
when I
Tom.
get back.
Well, I was getting them out of the pool because they would like fly into the pool or fall out of the tree into the pool, and so I'd pick them up and put them on the edge of the pool, and like 50% of them would walk away, and 50% of them would just turn and walk right back into the pool again. So
Jack, I'm telling you, you have no idea. They are the stupidest bug. Like,
they're totally stupid.
Like if ants look like Einstein compared.
Aren't they like drunk on sap or something?
They're drunk on something.
Possibly.
I guess because I mean, literally, I could go grab one right now. They don't try and get away, And 9 times out of 10, when you see them, they're lying on their backs, just trying to roll back and forth.
Yeah,
They were-
yeah. If somebody wants to, if you're gonna spend time talking about them, somebody should present one on the podcast. There's no doubt about that.
Okay,
Be right
I'll
back.
I'll track
Grab
some
them.
down, man. They're in my office. They're riding in on people's clothes. They get in the house. They come in on the cat. I mean, they're like,
Oh my
Yeah.
god, it's fucking terrible.
They'll stow away on you. I had one on me when I got in the car. And
He's got one already.
oh, nice.
Oh, that's
we
horrible.
can't. It's disappeared. There it is.
That's horrible. Is it alive?
Nah, this one's dead. I'm
Oh,
telling
good.
you,
It
they
was
die.
until he grabbed it.
They've got red eyes, man. They're like
Yeah.
got Farkas from Christmas Story. They've got red
Hey.
eyes or
Hey.
yellow eyes. Yeah, red eyes.
First of all, they're creepy as shit looking. I mean, they're really ugly, scary
Yes.
looking bugs.
I saw it. It was terrible.
And they'll,
What
they'll,
is Darcy
they'll fly
doing?
into you. Again, they don't do anything. It appears as
Darcy's
though they don't
doing
do
an
anything with
experiment.
any purpose.
There he is.
It's
I love-
Trying to finish stuff up,
chaos.
man.
If you watch them fly, they're hilarious. If you just sit down for like 10 minutes in the yard and watch them fly around, like they'll, unlike other bugs that fly and like land on stuff, these things, like if there's like a tree, they'll like
Bounce
go
into
be like
things.
boing and like bounce off of it. Like they can only land like a third of the time. Otherwise, they're like
so
ricocheting, and they're not fast.
Oh,
I've got
no.
like 20 splats on my windshield from them.
They have an
Easily.
on-off button. I don't know if you found this out. My 4-year-old, he would, when they're like on the tree, he'll like press them in the back of the head, and they'll go bzzz, bzzz.
Yeah, they have this weird noise, like a gurgling, like a. It's yeah.
I did not have to try that. I didn't know
But you
that.
can activate it by pressing them in the back of the head.
Yeah. Don't like them. Don't like them.
All right. Well, I didn't mean to take up.
I'm sorry. One question.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, these are the locusts that you like biblically speaking, right? This is the
They're
plague
not
of
locusts.
They're not
No.
locusts.
They're not locusts.
Okay.
Locusts are a whole different.
Hey, Mike, you're the cinema guy. Wasn't that like a 50s giant bug movie, Attack of the Locusts or something?
I mean, Kingdom of the Ants.
There was
that's not
something
50s,
with
though.
No, you're thinking of them.
Oh, them. Yeah.
I remember
No, I
this
don't
one
know.
with like these cockroach creatures, and they would get really super hot, like they'd swarm over to people, and then they'd superheat, and that was a really creepy one because they looked like roaches.
No, this was like 50s black and white, and it was like cheap special effects where they just had photos of the bugs crawling
Yeah, they
around,
blew it up. Yeah.
blew it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Darcy, are you protesting? What's going on down there?
What about one of my favorite just oogie scenes ever in a movie is Creepshow with the roaches. God, that
Oh,
one, it's so disgusting.
Yeah.
That was a great movie, man.
That's a great movie. That's E.G. Marshall, man. He was like an esteemed actor, like when he was younger and shit. He was in 12 Angry Men.
I believe it was Stephen King's first acting role, and he knocked it out of the park, man.
Yeah, he did.
He was
did.
great. His was one of the best story. Well, I mean, every story. I'm trying to think if there was one I didn't like.
Doesn't he find the meteor or something?
Yeah.
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 Yes. He
I won't screw this up this time.
Yeah, he's great in it. He's great.
He's terrific in it.
Yeah. Jordy Verrill.
Wow.
Jordy Verrill.
So, Mike, what are we talking about this week?
So it may be a little bit of a retread, but again, this is more like, you guys know I'm interested in like media and propaganda in general, like historically, not just current.
Now.
I'm sorry.
I said not just now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not just now.
Oh,
Yeah.
one last thing. What's going on with the network?
What network?
Different movie.
The
Oh.
promotion.
Should we talk about that right now?
Yeah, we'll
I
talk
guess
about.
Recording.
We'll talk about it later. Okay.
Yeah, we'll talk about it later.
Okay.
So anyway, it's something that just interests me, and I'm also not. I love talking about conspiracy theorists, but I'm not not a big believer in conspiracy theorists because it's very hard to get any group of people to row in the same direction on anything. So this whole dynamic of like where, personally, my opinion of where our media is and like what's driving it, and is someone behind it, is a group behind it, whatever. I read this article that came out May 5th. It has to do about COVID. And again, I don't, if we want to get into the political stuff, that's fine, but that's not my intent. The reason this article caught my attention is, I mean, without question, this virus is the biggest news story of the century so far. I think
Probably
it's
of
pretty,
our lives, yeah.
yeah, possibly of our lives, but definitely of the 21st century. And we're sitting here now, say this article came out last month, about a month ago, about, I don't know, 14, 15, 16 months after this pandemic really started. And it's the first thing I've read, and I've been actively trying to find out answers to things. It's the first article I've personally read that kind of just crystallized and put a lot of stuff together in a kind of just fact-based. I'm just presenting the information. I'm not trying to draw conclusions, although he does draw some conclusions. And it just got me thinking of like, how is it that we have so many media outlets, so many people employed as quote unquote journalists, in newspaper, TV, not just the United States, around the world. And this level of research and investigation is done by a guy who's retired. He used to be the science editor for the New York Times, among other positions. He's over 80 years old. He's retired. And he just had questions that he wasn't seeing answered. So he basically came out of retirement, didn't get a grant, wasn't paid, just decided to do his own research, and found out and all this information and put all these pieces together. And I thought, like, when I read it, it was fascinating. And on the other hand, I was like, what a disservice we're living with our current media. Like, why couldn't a lot of this stuff have been brought out? And he gets into things in there about possible cover-ups thing. I'm not necessarily going to get into that, but it was just troubling. Like, why are we still asking these questions 14, 15 months later? And it got me thinking. I mean, obviously we've talked about this before, the media, at least in the United States, just speak with the United States, pretty much everything you see, everything you hear, and everything you read is produced by one of four companies in our country. Yeah. I'm sorry.
There you go. And it's easy to go to the whoever it is. If you misspeak something, it's very easy to be sued, right? So you're liable. And you can have something like that turn into $100 million for someone, depending on what you're saying and how you say it. So it's just it's easy to stay away from it. And also you can't go out on your own. So it's not like was it Bernstein and whatever with the whole you just don't. It's not that way anymore. It's not independent. It's so you can't. It's too much of a liability.
Here's the part that's alarming to me is we got nowhere to go. We got no real, like, you have to deep dive to get anything that hopefully is facts. Like, even this guy that you got, who knows? Is he on somebody's dime? I mean.
Well, let me finish though. So, and to Darcy's point, I agree to an extent, but there are journalists, which I would call like classical journalists. I mean, people that they don't have they may have an ideological bent, but they really try to keep it out of their writing. They source things. They get three sources. They check things. They
try to maintain
they do the work. And this guy is one of them. And again, I know it's a long read. To me, it's fascinating to read it. But I don't, no one's coming out a month later and accusing this guy of any, lying or not sourcing. No one's accusing him of any sort of wrongdoing because he sourced the holy crap out of this thing and he has the receipts. So it's not something that you can just dismiss because he took a year, to write it, and it's like 50 pages long. So the thing that I started thinking about was
the thing that we should look at with this also is that did it on his own dime, 50
Correct.
pages. He's obviously doing this with intent. He has invested himself into it. So to that point, I'm going to say that gives it a lot of credibility.
Well,
Sorry, who are you talking about? Let's tell the audience.
Okay. So the article. Okay, so the person we're talking about in this part is.
I got it pulled up if you want.
He's a guy named Nicholas Wade. He is he's an investigative journalist specializing in science. I saw two interviews with him, and he basically did this on his own because he was upset that the story was not being researched and covered. So the name of the article is "The Origin of COVID. Did People or Nature Open Pandora's Box at Wuhan?" And it was published May 5th in the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists. And so as I read through this, it started to dawn on me, and this gets back to the whole conspiracy theory thing. I think the people who he kind of calls out as he does kind of accuse them, I guess, of being culpable in obfuscating and kind of like not being completely forthright and lying about some of these early details. I don't think that a lot of this would have happened if they knew that there was a vigorous media and a vigorous press out there that were checking them. I think we're in this second wave of this as a destructive feature of our society now, in that because the media is so just not doing its job, and I mean the job of journalism, I mean, what people go to journalism school to learn, because that's not happening, there are other people who, may not try to steal the cookie from the cookie jar, but now that they realize no one's looking, they're doing it. It's making things even worse because people that normally may not involve themselves in such a scheme to try to cover things up are giving it a whirl because they realize that if you are on the quote unquote correct side of whatever the narrative is of the day, and again, that no one's going to critically look at you or critically examine your story. And the fact that, again, this is about COVID, the biggest story of close, if not the biggest story of our lifetimes, definitely of the century, and that what this guy is writing about went untold for this long, and how so many things that we know now to be unproven were pushed and pushed to the point of, if you disagreed with them, or if newspapers disagreed with them, or people that were doing research disagreed with them, they were deplatformed. I mean, that's how pervasive it was. So I don't think it's a big I don't really believe in like this gigantic conspiracy. I'm just saying what's starting to dawn on me is that because our media is so broken, it's creating an opportunistic situation for all kinds of other shitty things.
See, here's the thing though, it's not broken. They're doing exactly what they want to do.
I mean, as the
job. You're all fuzzy, by the way, Mike.
Oh, sorry. I mean, when I say broken or not doing.
Put your hand close and then go back and see if that changes anything. Then bring it back. Maybe. No.
Actually, this is actually the way I look now.
He's got coronavirus.
He's being deplatformed as we speak.
Obfuscation man.
This is ridiculous.
No,
Okay, I'll try the other. Hold on.
Somebody's trying to silence you, Mike.
Yeah,
Hold on, let me check. Can you still hear me?
no, Mike is pixelated for his own protection.
There you go.
I just picked a. I just went to my old camera.
Yeah, I can see that.
So, and here's
Okay.
the thing:
On that.
we're short of becoming president ourselves. By the way, Wilkes Allen, 2024.
What?
We're never gonna know, because we're never gonna know whether this was the worst thing that ever hit us or it was a complete whitewash BS, not as bad as they make it seem.
I think we will. I think we will.
Whoever, well, whoever, if we
Eventually.
were to find that out, it'd be pitchforks and torches, man.
Yeah, but that should be happening already.
That's part of the danger. And I mentioned this to Zeus. Well, it was actually earlier today, but I got started on a little bit of things. But my concern is, and I think everyone can agree. I mean, and when I mean everyone, not just us, I mean everyone. I think it's crucial that we do find out what the origins of this thing, what it was, like where it came from. I mean,
Just to know, yeah.
just to know. I mean, because whatever the circumstances are, we have to know that to prevent it. And
Yeah, everyone wants to know.
I think
So
everyone
here's the
wants
thing about this,
to
though.
know that.
Quoting the X-Files, remember the smoking man?
Oh yeah.
He had
Cigarettes.
he had this
Yeah.
cohort that he would walk around with, and one day they said something, and I kind of think about this. It's kind of like aliens, or if this is a huge conspiracy. They say, smoking man looks over to the guy next to him. He's like, we change history all the time, and nobody's ever gonna know us. And I do believe, to a certain degree, that sometimes those people in power, wise decision or no, perhaps sometimes they hold back what would, just pummel the zeitgeist at the time. Like if we found out that, consider this, what if we found out that not only did it come from a lab in China, but their intent was exactly what happened?
Yep.
People would be dying in the streets. There are already people attacking Asian people right now. So my point being is, we're never going to know. We have our assumptions. We can deduce a lot, but at the end of it all, I can tell you, I think that everybody got it, like everybody got it, and it just didn't affect everybody the same. Some people might even just be immune to it naturally. They're just healthy.
No, we know that based on the numbers. They thought we'd lose like over 2 million people.
But those numbers are what I question all the time.
Well, me
Don't
too.
believe them.
No, that's a different thing though. But
How do we know how can we use the numbers as a reference if we don't trust the numbers?
No, the 2 million, that was without social distancing and without masks. So once you put those things into place, it's going to
Yeah,
come down from the
but
2
yeah,
million.
but now we know from the emails that the masks always were completely useless. And
we knew that from go.
also know that outdoor treatment of the virus was better for you than bringing the shit home and having everybody locked in with your family. Like
I think it was the opposite. I think he said the mask didn't work. This is Fauci we're talking about.
Right.
He said that on purpose because he wanted the mask to be available to the researchers and the nurses.
Yeah.
So he was purposely lying to the public, which he's did a couple times. So he's kind of like stepped in it a couple times here, but it was the opposite. So the mask did work, but he was telling you that they didn't.
And they're
weren't
not
that big of a
supposed to
deal.
prevent you from getting it. They're supposed to prevent you from giving it to
from giving it to somebody.
sending up. But here's the thing: those paper masks, the ones that most of us were wearing, the ones that you see in the hospital, the disposable ones. Those, like, doctors use those and they throw them away after 20 minutes. That is the recommendation. They're no longer useful after
Not to wear them for days. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I've got like 60 of them in my car.
To me, the thing that when I say terrifies me, I mean really terrifies me about this whole scenario. And I was just curious because you hear these numbers all the time, and I'm not saying Gallup is, the bee's knees or the arbiter of truth or
Watch your
anything,
language.
but this was a poll from September, and I just found this stunning.
Is Darcy
That
pulling something out of the ocean?
what? No, that
He's playing God.
He's
He's like
got the whole
manipulating the earth.
world.
like four out of 10 adults in America reported that they trust the media a great deal or a fair amount. So 4 out of 10. 6 out of 10 said they believe the media not very much or none at all. That's 6 out of 10. So the thing that terrifies me, and again, that's, say what you want about anything. If you have 6 out of 10 people in your country not believing like what's being reported, that's a problem. And if we have another virus, which I believe we will at some point, hopefully not in our lifetimes, but I think we will. What?
Dude, we had AIDS like 20 years ago, and that was
one third of Americans can't tell you which countries border the U.S. So
no, I got you, but that number,
Texas and New Mexico.
This has been a rolling poll yearly since 1972, and we aren't just we're at the very lowest of trust, and it's not gradual. It's going like this. So
but you understand why that is, right?
I know many reasons why that is.
I think the number one reason is because you can go on the internet and whatever opinion you have, you can find that, and you can find a group of people that believe that,
and go right down that rabbit hole. Yeah, into that echo chamber.
This goes back to my numbers that I gave you before, Micah. 20% on the right, 20% on the left. Well,
somewhere in between, that's a fallacy.
60 in the middle,
That's a fallacy.
There's some real thinkers on two sides.
Sometimes some things can be all a lie and something be all the truth. And, it's that's a fallacy. I don't go for that. I have friends that come to me with new ideas, and I'm like, okay, so where'd you get that information from? And they point me to some website that it's like, did you look at the stuff along the sides of the screen? It's like, yeah, Hillary Clinton had his daughter or something had an alien baby, or it's like context. It's like you gotta kind of.
I think and Darcy, I think I agree. I mean, that is definitely a percentage, but there's also a percentage of people, and I'm just saying general people, whatever their political spectrum is, whatever you're watching, whatever station you're watching. It's the stuff that's not reported that to me is the most egregious. Like, because if you do read multiple sources and you go to like more conservative sites, it's like Fox News was all about the Obama birther thing or whatever, and then you see stuff not getting reported elsewhere, vice versa. That's always been very, very telling to me. And I thought about there's a guy I know who I can't talk about, but anyway, he works in like national security, and he's always telling me, he's like, there's so much data that the government collects on people, and it's the new way of doing it, right? They don't do it themselves because there's so many laws against it, but they purchase it from these other companies that are collecting the data on us, right? Mm-hmm. So in a lot of ways, I started thinking about that model, and I did a little diagram, and I was like, yeah, you've got your content creators of media, which are these 4 big companies. You've got your distribution, which is basically your social media, because you have TV, you have newspapers, but most people experience TV and newspapers, magazines online, like Yahoo News, Facebook news streams, Twitter.
It's all on demand. It's on demand.
So you've got your content creators, you got your distribution, and then you have the government that's regulating it or not regulating it, because they get to keep their hands off of it. No, it's not us. It's private companies doing it.
Yeah,
right?
But we'd be foolish to think there weren't operatives from the government that work within the news sources. That's not even conspiratorial.
No, I don't. Sure. I'm not disagreeing, but I'm saying we have either backed into, or someone, Dr. Evil created it. I don't really care how it came about, but we are definitely in this structure right now where no one is responsible, no one is culpable, right? Because the government's like, hey man, we're not infringing on your freedom of speech. Twitter, I know Twitter just banished you, but all of the information is going through the social net. That's how people get the news. And the newspapers, in Australia, they're going after Facebook, wanting money, because they're like, hey, we're creating all this content and you're just ripping it and putting it online. It's
Good for them.
It's a whole new dynamic. It's a whole different dynamic where everyone can just put their hands up. Oh, we don't know nothing about nothing. But together, it's diabolical. It really is.
Right, but I mean, I think the gist of your point is that you're convinced that that's happening, correct? Like Zeus
I can
said.
see it. I mean, yes, to me, that's kind of how I make sense of it.
No, I agree. Yeah. But then I think we've touched on this whole, I think we did it from podcast number 1 about how the media works, about how they can control the narrative and everything. I think it was very early on. And I think what we tried to figure out is, let's say that, and you have CBS Viacom, you have NBC Universal, you've got Disney, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've
and
got
AT&T.
You got AT&T, right? And Time Warner's in there somewhere.
They're owned by AT&T.
Right, they're run by AT&T. And then you also have, the Murdochs, you have Fox News. And, they've got opinion shows that have been saying this shit, by the way, for about a year. And they're the only ones. And then people will scoff, they're the contrarian. They're the alternate source. Like, if you like that kind of thing. But the thing we were trying to figure out is if there is a cabal here, because you're right about Section 230 and how the social media platforms are in bed with corporate media, the legacy media, like in a way they are now, like they've never been. And that's why you have your Twitter and your Facebook and your Amazon, Google, ABC Corporation or whatever it's called. Like they run that, right? You got major companies that run the major social media, Zuckerberg, Bezos, etc. If they're in bed with the legacy news companies, the 4 that you mentioned, and the government's either in bed with them too, or they just aren't paying attention, which nobody believes. They're clearly in bed together. What I'm saying is you have to figure out, and I was trying to ask this the last time, what is the end game?
Yeah, that's the big question.
Yeah.
So is anybody familiar with what's called the invisible hand theory? It's like a philosophy that some people follow. Now I can see your hand, Tom. Don't be afraid.
Sorry, Tom.
But whoa, it disappeared. So invisible hand theory is basically they just let things happen as they're going to happen. But the thing is again, I've said this before. I don't think there's conspiracies. I think there's choreography. I think that they guide us one way. They've seen how we act about bread and toilet paper. Why not make something bigger?
Or opportunistic behavior. I mean, like I said, getting back to the article, one of Mr. Wade's, postulations is that this guy who was in charge of of a lot of funding for the Wuhan lab, when this thing got out, no one's saying that he did it on purpose, right?
This guy seems to be the villain of this story. If this was a movie,
what's his name?
He would be
let me find his name. But the point is, he was funding a lot of this gain of function research, and when shit hit the fan, gain of function research is when labs take, in this case, a coronavirus that has either very little or none. I don't think it's none, but very little lethality, and they work with it genetically to increase its lethality for the purpose of then having it available to work on to create antidotes and vaccines against it, so that if anything like it ever gets out, we've already kind of done the research. So it's a, on its surface, it's a very noble thing, right? But the fact that this guy was knowingly, and they've got him dead to rights. I mean, in his own writing, he knows that that's what he was doing. And then when everything hit the fan, he just clammed up. Like, everyone's like, "Oh, where could this have come from?" And he was just like completely silent about it.
But you're saying that he was altruistic with his intent.
Well, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt.
He wasn't silent.
I'm not saying I agree with gain of function.
No,
research, but
He actively
Tom's
tried
right.
to mislead everybody.
yeah.
But
After
was he trying to
it got
create
out.
a virus to kill 500? I'm
That's
saying.
what I'm saying. That's a whole other
Because he's
story. Who knows?
sinister.
I'm going to give him benefit of the doubt that he was doing it for noble purposes. But once, and whether it leaked from the lab or not, but once it was out, whether it came from an animal or not, this is a guy who's sitting on a ton of information about and knowing that this research is being done, and he zipped, and the Chinese government zipped, and everyone just got quiet. And the Chinese scientists that were aware of it, they got zipped. I mean, it was like you couldn't talk about it. And I'm not saying that, at the time it would be irresponsible to say, "Oh, this definitely came from a lab." But when you're not even allowed to discuss it, I mean, that's a whole other situation. That's what I'm talking about. Nice. You've had that up there before.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Like I said, we just gotta suck it up and know that this is what we got. We're not going to know anymore. We can, and even this is, just he wasn't the only one that knew.
Right.
I'm sure.
Correct.
His phones were being tapped. Was he American?
Yes.
It was from New
Patriot
York.
Act. They can get all the.
And again, here, getting back to the
No, their funding relied on.
yeah, their funding relied on him. He was getting funded by the NIH.
He actually lied. So did Mike. So did the WHO.
Yeah.
Right. Well, this guy Dashik, according to the article anyway, so the government grant from NIH went to him, then he subcontracted it to Wuhan. And then when the virus broke out, he was one of the representatives for WHO that was investigating the origins of the virus.
And
So
he
he was
already knew.
pointing his finger the other way.
All right. So
Saying, no, it
China.
didn't come from my lab. It came from the wet market over there.
And he could have been
He had
totally,
no evidence to say that.
and he could be totally innocent and just trying to dodge it. He had his hand in a cookie jar and he just doesn't want to get caught and get in trouble.
That's
Who
not
knows? I mean,
Sounds far more likely.
He's withholding information.
he was
So that's-
withholding information at the very least.
and his,
But
his
that's worse than
he's
lying
covering
in
his
so
own
many ways.
Yeah. So was
But here, when I'm talking about, and it's not just a minor point. When I talk about how important it is to a free and civil society to have quality journalism, whatever that manifests its way, I really think it's a possibility. This guy, if he had the mindset that there were going to be Woodward and Bernstein and who's the other guy? Anyway, if he was going to have these gumshoes on his tail, that he knew he was going to have the screws turned, right, and bamboo put under his finger, or whatever, he was going to get investigated, he probably wouldn't have done this. But he knew that our media coverage is bullshit and that he could just say whatever he wants, and no one even called the guy. I mean, this Nicholas Wade guy, he didn't have to do like deep throat, like hiding out in a parking garage. This was all readily available. He just connected the dots. This was all like things that were readily already reported on as separate stories. He just pulled it together. And again, these Fauci emails that just came out, they buttress a ton of what's in this article, like completely separate source. He didn't even have access to that.
Right. Nobody did.
I mean, it's pretty compelling, to say the least. But my concern is, again, if we don't have a decent press, a fourth estate, which is there to keep the government in check and protect the people by providing unbiased, and it's always going to be biased to a degree. There's always going to be bias in some media, but there's a difference between bias and driving a narrative. And if our media is so like just destroyed, it opens the doors for people, whether this guy had nefarious reasons or not, or whether he was just covering his ass. It opens the door for all kinds of other people to just try to get away with stuff because they know they're not going to get caught, and that is a whole other level of danger. This isn't just like, I don't like CNN or Fox News sucks. This is like so much more important and so much more serious than that on a lot of different levels. And we're gonna
Actually,
have
I think the thing that's the most dangerous is that out of all the post-industrial countries,
There we go.
we're the one that did the worst at it. And I think
journalism?
if no, I'm talking about as far as us wanting to help each other, just regular,
with the virus.
regular guy. Yeah, it's just it was just I don't even get it. I don't get it.
I don't
So-
agree with it, but I do get it to a degree because you have there's such a polarization in our media that people have had evidence that they're being lied to through especially recent history. So when they're already primed to be suspicious, that's, again, this is another unintended consequence. That's the danger of it. Like, people are like, oh, there's a government's telling me this. Fuck that. The government, they've been lying to me for whatever about this over here, and they have proof. It's not just like their opinion. So it's dangerous because it basically doesn't allow a society to kind of work together because there's so many other interests that have been proven to be deceitful in the past.
Right.
And when people pick up that someone's being deceitful to them, I mean, think about your interpersonal relationships. I give people the benefit of the doubt right out of the gate as a stranger. I mean, it's just the way I am. I know some people are the other way. However, if someone is being deceitful or lying to me, that's it, right? And people are like that with media, and people are like that with their government and other things. They're not very forgiving.
There's
Well,
been a couple
whether
of
it's accurate or not, Darcy. I mean, whether their opinion is correct or not. I'm just saying, if they feel that way, they are hyper skeptical, and that's the danger. And I think a lot of people, and again, I'm not, my opinions on a lot of this stuff, but people that are walking in like, I'm not wearing a mask because fuck you, like, that's fucked up, right? I mean, why do people?
Look, here's the reason why.
That's
Here's the
horrible.
reason why it was easy for me to take this seriously, was because they were warning white people about it. And I'm going to be honest with you. So I was like,
It's
look,
like, it must
they're
be
warning
serious.
white people about it. You had better pay attention.
Well, here's the thing.
know.
Most people aren't aware of this, but the pangolins are notoriously racist.
Is that what that is? Is that the pangolin?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I can't figure out who they hate though.
Who
Yeah.
hates?
I mean, do they hate white people? Do they hate Asian people? Do they hate all people? Like,
Pangolins?
Yeah, pangolins.
They hate anybody that doesn't look like prehistoric creature.
Oh, that's all of us, really.
They really are. They're kind of cool looking, actually.
Yeah, they're humanists.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
Are they related to armadillo?
No, they're more like an anteater, but they got this weird. It almost looks like tree bark, doesn't it?
I've
Yeah.
never seen one of those in my life, man.
Right?
I don't think we have.
They actually be carrying
Looks like a pine
coronavirus.
cone. Looks
Yeah,
like a
I
freaking-
hadn't seen one until last year.
I think they're cool as hell. I was looking at some videos of them, and they're like very docile, sweet creatures, but they cough on you. It's the weirdest thing. I'm just kidding. No, but they're very docile. They're from all I can tell, very sweet.
And also, but as far as like what Darcy's saying, I think the reason why it was like a dog eat dog, Old West kind of world. I mean, if you look at 2020, really, in retrospect, like, we were under assault of the senses. Like, it was.
It's been a horrible year, yeah.
No, it was just brutal because you had so much going on. Like, yeah, first of all, we have this new virus, and we have death tolls on the screen like something out of a movie,
Constantly.
constantly. It took a while for people to digest, and some people never did, that it was the old and the infirm that were predominantly dying of this disease, and that for other people it was a bad flu. And I think we just wrote that off because a lot of people knew somebody old and infirm that got stuck in a fucking nursing home that died. And it hit people home, a lot of people. Like what is it now? 3 million or 2 million or a million? No,
Worldwide,
in this country it's what is it now?
600, 700,000.
Okay, so I mean, and then it's all over the media because that's the story, right? I mean, everybody's dying in the street. They're showing footage from other countries. If you have a family, you're gonna be like, fuck, I gotta hunker down here, and I gotta, like, take care of my own. And then on top of it, you had the population centers were under assault with fires and assaults and whatnot, cops and shit. And then you also had, like, oh, the biggest election of our lifetime. Like Trump can't win. And then the Democratic primaries, and then, okay, well, Joe's the guy.
It was a packed year, man.
Mhm.
I mean, I'll say, to Darcy's point, I will have one caveat in there, and again, this may just be my recollection, but March, what is like mid-March is when stuff really started hitting the fan, as far as like it was always being talked about. If you were
Right.
following it, I was reading about this in December. So
February 15th, around February 15th is when I bought all the masks.
okay. That's what I mean.
Because
And went to
I
the
had
grocery
already,
store.
remember, I was in South Korea, and I'd seen all that stuff and the way people were reacting, and I was like, okay, well, and I remember thinking, man, I can't wait until I get back home. This won't be a problem there.
It's gonna
Right.
be, yeah.
Right.
But
I'll
I'll say,
funny,
Mike, I remember too when because if you watch cable news at all, one of the things every day was like the Trump press conferences, whether it was on the tarmac,
early on, yeah.
and they would like take snippets. I don't care what network you watch, they would give you 30 seconds of them being an asshole. And it was COVID every day.
But I would say to the point
And that was like February. That was like February at least.
it started, but it really ramped up by March is when people, like, companies were closing and people were laid off.
Right.
But I would say my memory of the beginning, and I would say like March 20th through April, everybody, it was like after 9/11, everybody was like, yeah, man, wear a mask, 6 feet.
I didn't say I was right about anything until it was the NBA.
But I'm saying right at the very beginning,
Yeah.
I was like, I'm right.
I think people were cool at the very beginning because people were, as a people and people in general, were pretty trusting. And when it's like, holy shit, this horrible thing's happening, here's what you need to do, people are like, okay, fuck it, put on the mask, out of work. Like, people will fall in line very quickly. But sustaining that, when people started noticing, like, who's an essential worker and why is my company shut down but grocery stores are open, or I'm an independent business person that has a store, I can't have anyone in there but Costco is open. Like, when
that
all
one
the
bothers
cracks
me a lot.
started appearing, that's when shit started going sideways.
Well, Mike, remember it was supposed to be 15 days to flatten the
curve, right?
Flatten the curve.
Here's the thing about that I find it so troubling. Like me, I'm an essential worker. That's my job. It's not a big head thing, but I'm trained in medicine. Granted, I'm a psych nurse, but still, I know the language, and that's a huge part of doing this is just knowing the language. When somebody says, certain terms, I can pick it up pretty quickly. Like erythrocytes or, different things. You can take the letter, you can take the suffixes and the prefixes and put them together and you know what you're talking about. That's red blood cells. But the thing is, but you got people that are making $8 an hour in a grocery store, no training whatsoever, no understanding of the real importance of washing your hands and all that. Honestly, washing your hands was the biggest thing.
Not doing this with the mask all
Yeah.
day.
But we didn't know that. I mean,
No, but my
everyone-
point being is the concept of essential worker was just what was ever made it was most convenient for society. I mean, really, supermarket workers probably shouldn't have been. It should have been skeleton crews. You know what I mean? I mean, they put up the shields, but now the shields are coming down. I think I told Mike from Go that, I mean, like right when it first started, I kept saying this thing, because they were saying, oh, it spreads super fast and it's really deadly. And I was telling Mike, like day one when we would started talking about it, that it's one or the other. It cannot be both. Because at the end of the day, what are we at, 500,000 right now?
6 to 7.
6 to 7 out of 330 million people. It's not the worst numbers you could have.
No.
The Spanish flu, we've said this before, ate up like a third of the world. By today's numbers, that'd be like 60 million. I think Mike and I were trying to figure it out.
It's still a lot of people, though, man.
It
I mean,
is,
it's like,
and I'm not being dismissive about it. But what I'm saying,
And let's say no one died, but let's say, I don't know, 10% are down for 3 weeks. That killed me, man. That's I can't.
It breaks my heart that people died from it, but we have to. The science of this is an important thing to remember, that in the grand scheme of things, this was
and also I really
for something
don't
else
think
later.
we ever had what I consider a shutdown, because we had
look at newspaper articles from the Spanish flu. They were wearing masks
because right in April, Rebecca's parents had videoed people. There were like all these kids on the beach. I was like, see, I bet you most of those kids are not from Florida. They're going to take that right back to all those flat places where I was speaking about and out west, where it shouldn't get to. I was like, if we took this seriously, it wouldn't get to those small mom and pop places like way out. It just wouldn't get there.
Dude, there was definitely a shutdown. There's a lot of businesses in my neighborhood that never came back.
No. I agree. I agree with that. But there are shutdowns and then there's shutdowns.
Yeah. It wasn't like the Chinese.
So it's like, okay,
they weren't like kidnapping people.
If I follow
they
all
didn't
the
have
rules,
guns at your door.
and the guys next door around me or whatever, they don't.
I'm just saying, at the beginning, everybody was in it. I remember in my neighborhood, there was this whole thing of like, put a teddy bear in your window so that when kids take a walk around the neighborhood, they can see, and everyone had teddy bears in their window. What I made fucking squirrel picnic tables. I mean, everyone was just doing, there was all kinds of crazy stuff going on. And people have patience, and people will act as a group initially for a short period of time. But when they aren't shown, the facts and like the truth, and like everything starts spiraling out of control. When things start appearing to be arbitrary, that's when you lose people.
Well, also,
like, fuck it. They don't trust you anymore.
Also, the lockdown lifted in the summer, if you recall, and we can talk about that being commerce and tax dollars, because I believe that. I really do.
Yeah.
So,
and then also the numbers were coming out, and it was becoming apparent that the people that died from this were very specific. I mean, they were coming out in like April, May.
Mm-hmm.
And then less people were dying from it. Hospitalizations dropped drastically because people weren't freaking out about it.
But the level of trauma that people, I mean, there are people who had their parents die. They couldn't go to a funeral.
Mike, I said that. I said that like 5 minutes ago. Yeah, that's what I mean.
Well, I got sick because of a funeral.
Oh, really? Is that where you think you got it, or
So,
where you
no, no. So I didn't go to the funeral, and it was because Rebecca's oldest daughter lost her boyfriend. Unfortunately he drowned in a tub. Fell asleep in a tub, drowned.
Holy shit!
Right.
So they went out to Illinois to go to his funeral, and Rebecca or one of her daughters brought it back.
Jeez, man.
So look at this thing behind me. I'll get out of the way for a second, but this is 1918.
Yeah, man. Spanish flu.
Health Commission issues proclamation ordering.
Did you say Spanish fly?
What?
It was Spanish fly. It was the Spanish fly flu. It was super fun at the beginning, and then it just went out of control.
Do I make you Randy? No, but I mean, we've done this before. We've done this before. We've been through this before. This was worse. This was far worse.
I think there were, I think, and this is just my own,
only 100 years ago.
This is my own feeling. I think at first things were done altruistically and people tried to make the right decisions, but then it became very apparent that this was something that was very easy to exploit for whatever other reason.
Commerce, man. If you buy a mask that's got Redskins on it, you know what? The people that make those masks pay for their lawmakers and all
Dan
that.
Snyder, he's behind everything, man.
No, I mean, I'm not even saying that, but I'm saying it kind of trickles up. You know what I mean? It'd be foolish to think that the masses, that the people that make the money have the control. We know this. The lobbyists, you know, I mean, I'm not saying that the guy that makes the Redskins mask, but what I'm saying is it became
it's opportunistic.
Well,
it's not a big conspiracy. It's something happens and there's people around that are like that can take advantage of it. It's
like
not
cicadas.
Made thought ahead of time.
Fucking cicadas.
They did it. They got all the money.
I do. Let me tell you.
Okay,
I don't believe.
Listen,
I don't believe the 600,000 number. No, I think that's going to be the next shoe to drop. So this one you're kind of exposing the origins of COVID. I think the next shoe to drop, and it may not come to like 5 or 10 years down the road when it's politically safe for people to start even discussing the numbers, were they correct or not. But I think these numbers are way off. When you have all of a sudden cancer deaths drop, heart disease deaths drop, pneumonia and flu deaths drop almost to nothing for those ones.
Which is ridiculous.
And then all of a sudden COVID is spiking up. Then there's something, because those people still must have been dying from those things as they always were.
Yeah, but they like to nail the COVID on it because hospitals get a certain amount of money for.
So these numbers need to be revised at some point down the road. Somebody needs to come back and correct the math here, because I think we're way off.
Yeah, the dying with versus dying from.
Yeah.
Right. Well, again, the flu, the year before COVID-19 hit us, now this isn't the same amount, but it killed 85,000 people the year before. That's a frightening number. But again, as much as it sucks, it's a certain portion of our population. You know what this is? This is a world telling us that we need to lose some fucking weight and stop eating so many carbs. Because honestly, healthy people.
It's the elderly.
The
elderly are normally the ones dying from the flu. And you can't tell them to get in shape or anything.
Oh, the Zeus. You remember Avi, don't you?
Yeah.
The guy, his diet, it's like 95% carbs. That guy's cut up.
But he's healthy. I'm saying you have to be healthy. Take your vitamin D. Vitamin D is crucial. You know, and just be as healthy as you can. If you're diabetic, take your meds. If you've got heart problems, take, you know.
Be healthy.
What?
Jack is smoking while you're talking about being healthy.
Hold it.
Yeah.
Right.
The abuse.
But you know,
perfect timing, Jack.
Do the things that make you as how do I put it? You want to be as immuno strong as you possibly can. You know, you want to not be susceptible to those things.
Yeah.
Rope-a-dope it though. You know,
I mean, I see. I
Rope-a-dope
manage.
corona.
I think it
rope-a-dope
comes
the
down
throat.
to what's Jason Alexander on Seinfeld?
George,
Costanza.
Yeah, I'm
George.
George Costanza. I'm the guy that would eat the eclair out of the top of the trash if nobody was. That's probably saved me from coronavirus.
I'll tell you one thing I'm going to miss about COVID is not having a cold. Like I have not had a cold.
That's interesting.
No, that
a
was
year.
the cool thing. Yeah, that was the longest I went without a cold.
Yes, but you had a life-threatening virus.
I'm
Yeah.
just saying.
Because people are washing their hands, and the mask obviously, and then the washing the hands I think was a big deal. People
But
probably were not washing that
I
much.
still had those damn allergies though.
Yeah, so did I.
Yeah,
They
me
even
too.
said that it doesn't stay on like flat surfaces
yeah.
in it really that well either.
Yeah.
Honestly, like I said, honestly, it cannot be. This is back to what I was talking to Mike about. Is it just can't be super? What's the word I'm looking for? It can't be super virulent.
No,
It can be super deadly. It's I think
one or
it's
the other.
very virulent.
Like Ebola is
Both. Yeah, there's questions as to whether they didn't just go into the jungle and burn down villages when they got it because it's that bad.
But one thing, and just to jump back to the topic du jour real quick, and then before I forget, because it was like another point, just getting back to there are certain people that are really trying to commit, acts of journalism out there that get various levels of support. Some used to work for major news companies that were then let go, like Cheryl Atkinson. I mean, whether you agree with her or not, she, Glenn Greenwald, Matt Tiabi,
Alex Berenson.
from New York Times, Matt Tiabi with Rolling Stone. I mean, 15 years ago, I would read Matt Tiabi articles. I was like, man, this guy's a freaking douchebag. And now I'm like, he gets it. Like you don't have to agree with somebody to agree with like their integrity. But I look at this, the way certain things are getting manifest. This guy, Nicholas Wade, okay, retired. He saw a need. No one's reporting on this. He was curious himself. He was like, I needed to know. Like that's his training. That's what he did. And then who was it in our thread that posted the link to the Abigail Schreier video?
Is that the one she was
Jason.
talking about, the social credit?
That was Jason.
Jason.
Oh, okay.
So I looked her up because I thought that was a fascinating talk, and she had the same thing. She was an investigative reporter,
That
and
was
the story about
Transgender thing. Yeah,
and
that
the
was
story
really fascinating.
found her. Like the people came to her and were like, "Look, we're trying to get to the bottom of it," and she was like, "Hey, okay, I'll pass it along." And then she was like, no one's doing it, so I'll do it. Like, that's how some of this stuff is getting so bad that, like, people are like, yeah, man, this is a hugely important topic, and no one's
really
doing
is.
any research into it.
The thing I loved about that.
But also, Mike, in her case, she has a daughter that transitioned. And
I didn't know that. Her daughter did?
Her daughter did, and then regretted it. Or no, her daughter either was an athlete, I think.
I did not know that.
I think I heard that, yeah.
I
remember that.
I thought it was like someone came to her whose daughter was transitioning.
No, they all came after. They all, like the people that regretted it.
Gotcha.
I like how she delivered herself, and it's kind of like what I like when we're on and we're not bickering with each other. How she wasn't trying to like inspire you to see things her way. She was just trying to deliver information and express what her experiences were. And I also like the fact that, I mean, I've been thinking that for a really long time, is that this influx of information, these kids are getting the wrong information about how
to feel,
to live. Yeah. Like kids have homosexual thoughts and they don't end up being homosexual. It's like an experimental phase. Not everybody, but people do. It's
not uncommon.
It's not uncommon. But now we got if I talked about this, I don't want to belabor it, but they can now go online, and somebody who did not make a good decision and maybe had other issues going on that led them to that decision that may have forced them to do something that they were going to change, they would have changed their mind about. Now they're putting something on a blog, and then this other kid that's confused sees it, and they say, oh, well, they know how I feel, so I'll do what they did. And I'm not diminishing, non-binary, all these things. What I'm saying is I think they were always there, but now the zeitgeist is that you do what everybody else is doing, and
Right.
there's just not even just the media, just in general, there's so much misinformation out there.
I thought her point about social.
Wait a minute. It's one thing for the kids to fall for this, guys.
Yeah.
It's the parents too.
Well, the parents that are like, I'm gonna use the pronouns, and I'm not saying they shouldn't.
No, no. The pronouns I'm okay with. If you want to do that with your kid, that's your business. I may not agree with it, but okay. But I'm talking about the hormones.
Well, you know that the kids can get the hormones under 18 without parental consent in a lot of places.
That's the part that's kind of effed up.
That's wrong, dude. Yeah.
And they can have young girls can have their breasts removed without parental consent in certain places.
And that's the sort of thing, again, where stuff starts getting real is when you have the school system, government, whatever, inserting themselves in between children and parents, and that's what gets people freaked out. I'm sorry.
Here's what I'd like to find out, and we should look into this. So there was a time where children who were homosexual, there was a large suicide rate. So one would think that if some of those children are now able to change their sex because they feel like that's what they want to do, one would think that the suicide rate amongst them would drop, wouldn't you think? I'd be interested in seeing if now that they supposedly have a solution.
No, I would think that
it's the opposite. It's the opposite.
I know. This is what I'm getting at. What I'm saying is it would be interesting to see the numbers, because I'll bet they're the same. I'll bet the suicide rate is exactly the same.
I think it's worse. It's like 42%.
If they're more accepted, you would think that the numbers would go down.
That's the thing. They do it, and then they feel bad about the decision. That's where a lot of the suicides come from now. But still, I'd be interested to see if there was any wavering of it, or because it's really a very recent phenomenon. Like I'd say maybe 2015 to now is when it's really ramped up. Just this whole pansexual, non-binary, all that stuff. It's really become part of the common talk.
There was a study recently that said that when they compared the numbers of it was girls that think they might be gay has dropped like drastically, and now the number of girls that think that they're boys has gone up drastically.
It's just swapped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the one
that scares me, and I feel bad for them. I really don't have an ugly thing to say about them. I just want them to do I want them to make the healthiest choices for themselves.
Right.
And I think they're being led down a path, and maybe not even with ill intent, but just with poor information from people that may not be the best be making the best decisions in their lives.
Like certain Miss Page, now Mr.
She seems to be doing it pretty healthy, honestly.
As a middle-aged white guy, here's my opinion about young ladies who are trying to be transgender, right? Like, I've got an opinion on it. But the thing that Schreier said that I thought was amazing, and I'd never thought about before, was the social contagion aspect of this, and comparing it to the spread of bulimia and anorexia among young ladies.
They're very similar. They're very similar.
Where you have the social. I'd never even heard that term before. I was like, wow, that's pretty. And it rings. I'm not saying it's true. It rings true to me from my own experience.
What's the term, Mike?
Social contagion, in that you have certain psychological issues that can be transferred socially and it's been already studied and shown like bulimia and anorexia can spread through a like say a
group of
high school
people.
population of girls. If
Like
you know one or two may have it and got it, you know, or dealing with this issue, and then other
Right.
people find out and they kind of
Yeah.
So now
Get
I'm
it.
And
not.
those are all like, that's body dysmorphia, right?
Yeah, but now they're
Okay.
using a term for the non-binary kids. They're calling it gender dysmorphia.
Right.
And yeah, body dysmorphia is fascinating. I've been thinking that that's what anorexia. I'm not, you know, obviously I'm not a psychologist, psychiatrist,
Totally it is. It's
but I
totally
did stay at a Holiday Inn Express. But I do have strong feelings about this, and I do feel like because they see themselves different, like
Right. When
bulimia,
you look like
they-
that and you think you're overweight,
fat, yeah.
there's a problem.
And
You know,
the
there's a huge
dysmorphia,
problem.
there's people that have like cut off their legs. This is just another virus of it.
So the
Just,
thing,
you know,
the second thing that Schreier said, in addition to the social contagion, which I thought was pretty, and again, I've read up on this too, and it seems to be accurate, is that the general instructions that these pediatric, you know, pediatricians and doctors that treat this, they've gone from being like approaching it from a skeptical scientific standpoint to a supportive standpoint. So if little Susie goes in to see her doctor and says, you know, I think I'm a guy, there's no critical examination. It's like, okay, well, I better support you in this and off to the races. So
the
Yeah,
thing that I found
Mike,
fascinating was
Mike,
she said,
they call that assertive treatment.
yes, yes.
Assertive treatment. Like a lot of doctors are only doing that.
well, here's the thing.
it's
Do
out
you
of
remember
fear,
when
though.
she said that there in I think it was like 2015, like kind of
Affirmative.
Treatment.
Yeah.
Affirmative treatment.
which saying
They're
yes
just
to everything
scared.
isn't great. But remember, she also said that like I want to say like 2015, like at the beginning of her story, that there was only like one or two gender transition clinics in the United States,
Yeah.
and now there's like 330.
300.
Yeah, that's in 6 years. That you know what that says? That says it's being monetized too. It's money. It's money. And it don't you can tell me all day long that this is trying to keep kids safe and don't want them to kill themselves and all that, but that's too rapid of a growth. I do not believe 300 clinics are all being altruistic, and it's just to do the right thing.
I think there's also, this is my own personal opinion, whatever. I think there's also a lot of like Munchausen by proxy going on with these parents.
Absolutely.
And-
My kid's interesting because they think they're, you know what I mean?
And it gives you
Yeah.
something to talk about in your little coffee clutch or whatever. Like, you know, Susie Q is,
I got
it's like,
nothing but-
it's like fashionable. I mean, look, it's hard to believe people are like that until you've met them. And when you meet them, it's
Frightening.
it's very disturbing, but they do exist.
It's I mean, I've been around. Oh, you mean the Munchausen? But yeah, I see.
Yeah, when you meet them, like I was like, man, that's
I
like
see it all the
crazy. And then
time.
like I start, and I'm like, that's really sad. Like
we
it-
constantly have somebody come in, and then their parents come to visit them, and we're like, we need to get you a room.
Mhm.
Like it
they're like
happens.
giddy
Look at
about their
the-
kids.
Look at the
issue.
athletes like Todd Marinovich. Remember his story? So I mean, it's nothing
No,
new.
what story? What's up?
Todd Marinovich. So the father wanted to be an athlete and a quarterback, but he wasn't that good. So he pushed his son really hard to be a quarterback, and he was like pushed him too hard, really. And the kid just burned out, and it was a disaster.
Hmm.
He did get drafted by the Raiders, of course, but
Of course, the Raiders, right?
Oh, wait a minute, Tom. Was he one of the Brady Six?
I don't know.
Is he one of the
Might have
what?
been before that.
Okay. The Brady Six, the 6 quarterbacks that were drafted in front of Tom Brady.
Oh,
Okay.
by the way, I just have to say, Tom has the best background ever. Like, is
I
that
know,
a
Aurora
video
Borealis.
loop, or is it playing? Is like, are you actually in front of the Aurora Borealis right now? Like,
No, that's floating coronavirus behind you. It's just loose.
So what do you guys? What do you guys think? Do you think that we're? I think we're getting past it. Like I think actually, even if they didn't vaccinate anybody else, you're gonna have people that are naturally resistant, and then we've got a lot of people now that have been. I think people are still gonna wear masks. Not everybody.
Dude, I'm vaccinated. I can drive 100 miles an hour in the Beltway now. Like, there's no repercussions for anything I do. I'm totally cool.
I cough in people's faces and just go, "It's cool, man."
Yeah, I can juggle chainsaws. Like, I'm
You're like
golden.
You're like Superman now.
Yeah, man.
You're all about that.
That's great. This was a good one. I'm glad we went down this road. So here I got a question. Does anybody know when we're supposed to find out all the alien news?
I thought it was today.
I thought it was June 24th.
Really?
Oh, and
What alien news?
so there's
alien journalists, man. Like, come on.
So
That's what they're focused on.
apparently the government's
You got
supposed to.
coronavirus. They're focusing on UFOs.
Yeah, so apparently the government is going to release a bunch of information about, what do they call them, UAPs now?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So all those videos that you guys were showing me like a couple months ago,
Yeah.
did you guys?
I saw your video,
I
Darcy.
Yeah,
saw it was
Tic Tac video.
debunked by a guy on the internet.
And it's my favorite guy, Thunderfoot. I love him.
Thunderfoot.
Yeah, I
But the
love
Tic
that
Tac
guy.
is debunked.
The Tic Tac's debunked?
Is that what
Yeah.
you're saying?
Are you
Darcy,
sure?
Darcy
Yeah.
said it's regular.
Did you watch the
aircraft.
video? Did you
I
bother
did.
to watch the video?
I
did.
watch
I
everything,
watch it.
man.
All right.
What's his name?
That thing seems to be
Thunderfoot.
moving way.
Thunderfoot. I love that guy. He said, let me see, I think it was like 3 years ago, something like that. He did a video about Elon Musk and his Hyperloop, and he was like, yeah, that's not a thing, you know. He was explaining why, and it makes total sense.
Yeah,
He's
you
like,
love Thunderfoot, all right, because you hate Elon Musk.
I don't hate him.
I like
It's
it.
like, you
He's
should
a liar.
stay in your lane. Yeah, he's a liar.
He
He's
just
a liar.
dislikes him a lot.
Right, he
But
dislikes
you
very
know,
much.
I will say,
Do
Darcy,
what you will,
the
you
video,
change the world.
the video of the lady beekeeper was very good.
Yeah, you know, it's sad though, but I've known a lot of people that have killed whole colonies of bees, thinking that, you know, something's going on, you know, and
This
they're
is
just trying to find a home.
A little known fact, in addition to running a BBS for a while, I also kept bees for a while when I was in college for like a year. And when I started out, I had like the whole freaking outfit with the
Yeah.
but then within, because you know, there's always like the cool dude that's like, man, you don't need that shit. So like after a year, I was out there in shorts and flip flops, like no hat on, nothing. I got stung one time in a year.
Nature, man, nature. Hey Zeus, remember that time when we were kids, we were walking over that bridge and I got stung by like 3 or 4 bees and I was like, run, Zeus, run.
Get out while you can.
Actually, I set you up, Darcy.
Yeah, it turns into the ending of that movie, My Girl. Where are his glasses? Where are Darcy's glasses? He forgot his glasses.
My favorite Darcy story was us skateboarding when it was the thing.
What the what?
And we went to my aunt's wedding, which was on October 31st. It was on Halloween, and they let us have a few beers, and then they let us have a few more beers, and then we got home we were on our skateboards, and Darcy just. I'm looking. He's going really fast, and then all I see is feet up in the air, and he landed right on his tailbone.
Oh,
And he goes, whoops.
were these like the fat boards or like the little?
Yeah, like
boards?
Steve Caballero.
The nice boards, the $200 skateboards.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But that was pretty funny. But I'm intrigued. So who's got next week, by the way, Mike?
Me.
Okay.
What
What do you think we're gonna do? Give us a little
No, don't
idea.
put him on the spot.
Yeah, you don't gotta.
Okay, fair enough.
Top
fair enough.
secret.
So
Top
my
secret.
alternate, I have an idea.
Next
And,
week, Tom talks a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I want Tom. I want to hear Tom for the whole. I'm not even gonna say anything the whole time.
I mean,
But I will say,
We'll just mute ourselves.
I think
you have the floor.
I think we should come up with, even though we're going to keep, I like this round robin thing. I think we should come up with a little set list of general topics. So that if someone can't think of one, we can just like jump to it. Because the ones where we have no idea what we're doing, they're not charting as
Oh, this
well.
one's good.
Like we're getting word from corporate, they're not performing up to standards. We need to have topical things.
I love that you
Or
guys.
we're all going to lose our jobs, and I
I
don't
love
want
that you guys are on top of that. Somebody needs to be.
You're fired.
The original topic.
Hey, I'm waiting.
The original topic until I
He
read
wants
this
to be
article.
fired.
It was going to be fatherhood. I thought that would be a good topic.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
We could still do that. Father's Day's when?
Week after next.
Okay. I mean, mine aren't here, so I'll just be crying as you guys.
So I'm just saying, as we like all aspects, like grandfathers, fathers, so like the whole paradigm. I think it's fascinating, but I'm kind of new to the game, so
I got some good dad stories. For my
How
dad.
old are your kids? How old are your kids?
I have one, and she's just
One.
turned 6,
Okay.
and
Jeez.
I'm
My boy just turned.
born
He just
years old.
turned 5. He just turned 5.
Cool.
I was there when she was
Yeah,
conceived.
Great. That's nice, huh?
So say the words, Jack.
Yeah, boys, we've been on for a while now. I think it's time we should wrap it up.
all right.
Yeah.
Have a good night, fellas.
Good night, guys. Don't go anywhere,
Take
though.
it easy.
Bye, Dios.